Morena koutou katoa, ko Nick toku ingoa. Thought it was timely I do a little introduction video of this plot of land I have the privilege of living on. This is not a how-to video or expert growing tips sort of thing. If you've come here for that, you'll be quite disappointed. It is more just my honest experience of trying to raise animals and growing my own kai. So there are some challenges probably along the way, but I'm hoping there are some successes too, and there's learning in that. It is the 23rd of July today on the farm, which means we're right in winter right now. So everything's rather dormant and just resting until it's going to burst into life for the growing year ahead. So I thought I'd introduce you to some of the animals here and just a bit about what's happening on the farm. We decided on Orpingtons as our breed of choice. We've tried to stick to a lot of old heritage breeds here on the farm, just because they're meant to be a bit more naturally hardy and are the kind of animals we've worked with for arguably hundreds of years. So Orpingtons are a dual purpose meat and egg breed, and yeah, really enjoy working with them. We ate our first one at a midwinter Christmas we did. He was a rooster and he had a good life, a good death, and he was much appreciated when we ate him. And the girls aren't laying at the moment. They tend to have rest over winter when they molt because they put all their energy into that. But I'm hoping that with the spring to come, they're gonna all start laying soon, so we'll have a really constant supply of fresh eggs. There's our cat there, Aggie. But we've got beehives that I wanted to show you. And these are queen rearing hives for a company that my father-in-law works for. And we get free honey and pollination out of it, and they get a sheltered spot to put their bees, I guess. While it might not look like much at the moment, this little area of the farm is a food forest that I'm trying to establish. So there are a bunch of fruit trees in here mixed with shrubbery that's edible, berries, and just some natives or other plants that do things like fix nitrogen into the system. So I'm trying to make sure that everything gets along here, but again, it is a little bit of trial and error, and everything is different, every climate is different. So it'll take some patience, but I'm excited to see how this will turn out in the years to come. And the hope is this will be a nice little forest area for all the animals that live here and give us a really good abundance of fruit and berries. This is an example of trying to plant things together where they support one another. So in the center here there is a dwarf nectarine tree, and below it there's a garlic bed with strawberries. Apparently they go well together. You won't be able to see, but there's little clovers around amongst the grass, which is a fixer of nitrogen into the soil. There's also a small tree lucerne plant, again a nitrogen fixer, and just in the lower layers of this little fruit tree there's some cranberries, raspberries, and also a bush of rhubarb growing too. So this here's the main garden. Yeah, I know it looks like a bit of a mess and there's weeds everywhere and probably looks like there's no rhyme or reason to it. But hey, I embrace the chaos of nature, you know, just roll with it, right? And actually, like, you don't want your ground bare over winter anyway, so there's a few cover crops in there just to keep the soil protected and healthy for when spring comes. There isn't a lot happening in this garden at the moment. There will be in summer, you'll just have to wait and see and believe me. But at the moment, there's just a few leftover brassicas, a few daikon left, and things like bok choy. This is some bok choy that's gone to seed, and I kind of just like to allow a few plants to do that, because through like the early parts of spring when the bees are coming out, there's not as much food, so these kind of plants are really good for them. When I've left things to flower, it's also meant that it's self-seeded, so although they're pretty slug eaten, these wombok here weren't actually plants I planted. They were just plants one year I let go to seed, and then all these little sprouts started popping up in autumn. So just let nature do its work, I guess. I was away for like a couple of weeks and couldn't stay on top of the slugs, and to be honest, that's one of my biggest challenges. So yeah, still looking for that really good slug control solution that isn't poisoning all the soil. And hey look, I said I'd give you an honest experience, and here is a head of cauliflower. Doesn't it look delicious? Yum, yum. Oh, it's all rotted. Don't know why that's happened. It's been too wet maybe, not the right stuff in here, too harassed by slugs. But like I said, it's not all bountiful crops and success. This is garlic I planted in sort of, I think Mayish. I planted some in April, some in May, and then some in June, and planted the garlic in separate areas. Got a really good crop of garlic last year because I mostly managed to avoid rust until right at the very, very end. If you don't know, rust, I'm pretty sure, is a fungal disease that garlic gets pretty regularly in New Zealand, and it can make it pretty hard to grow at times. So I'm hoping if I just move the garlic around in different areas and plant it at different times, some of it won't get rust. So fingers crossed it works again, but this so far is popping up nicely. I do need to re-mulch it, which I'll do again today. And I know it's not pretty, and good old blackbirds have got in and dug around it. But yeah, in time I'll net this, I think. While there's less happening in the garden at the moment over winter, we are having an abundance of other things that nature's providing us. So there's heaps of nettles that we can use in teas or wilt or whatever. It's actually really tasty. I love nettle. And there's also like really good supply of things like chickweed as well, which to me just tastes as good as lettuce. So these two lads are White Galloway Frisian Cross. They have huge appetites, and of course, you know, feed's a bit more scarce over the winter, so they're given a bit of baleage and just break feeding them at the moment. But they have an important role here on the farm. They poo, and that poo is awesome fertilizer for the garden. Apparently you can just put cow shit directly into gardens, unlike other manures which are too acidic. I've heard like even things like pumpkins can just grow straight out of cow poo. So they're good for that anyway. Again, being White Galloway, that's a older, more slower growing heritage breed. But I'm just hoping with the theory that they've been around a while, so it will make them a bit more hardy. But they're chomping at the bit for some baleage, so I'll give them a wee feed now. Learned a lot about cows having these two. One, they do what they want to do. They don't really respect fences. You take your eye off them for a second and they'll destroy the exact thing you don't want them to destroy. So they're pretty willful. So these are Wiltshire sheep. They were the animal of choice for lifestyle property because you don't have to shear them. Means they are less likely to get like dags and fly strike, and yeah, they normally have pretty clean butts. And also they're a heritage breed too, so theory is they'll just be a bit hardier. So there's a young ram in the middle there, and hopefully he's going to sire some lambs in the next months to come. There's one girl there that definitely looks pregnant, and I reckon she could burst even this month. So we use the Wiltshires for meat, and it is delicious. It's really good. And definitely the experience so far is when you raise an animal, when you eat it, it's so much more meaningful because you see it kind of from start to finish, and it sort of gives you a level of respect because you know how much went into the animal to get from here to your plate. So there you go, there's a quick farm introduction. So I'll be enjoying the last of winter just at this slower pace, and I guess by next month I'll start to plant out the things for the growing season ahead. So that'll be stuff just like trying to get a head start on chilies and eggplants in the greenhouse, and then just getting potatoes out and maybe some other things like peas and lettuces. But the real stuff's going to get started once we get into spring.